My LDL hit 158. Eventually, I got it down to 80. But what surprised me was the middle. I took the statin, my LDL dropped, but not as much as I expected. And then I lost 30 pounds, and my LDL was still 119. That's when I realized something. Cholesterol doesn't respond to effort, it responds to specific inputs. Once I figured out which lever actually moved it, my numbers dropped into the low 80s, and my doctor was surprised. Let me show you exactly what changed. So back in 2022, I got my cholesterol done, and my total cholesterol came back at 236. My LDL was 158. Before that, I was doing a home tester, similar to the blood sugar tests you can do where you prick your finger, take the blood, and then it measures your cholesterol. And it was coming back in the 230s, and I didn't believe it. I said, they're inaccurate. I feel fine. It's nothing. I'm going to use diet and play around with those numbers and see what I can do. And I never really got real lab tests. And I moved. I got a new doctor. They wanted the test done. And I got the test, and it was those numbers above. It was the same things I had been getting with the little device at home, and it was now official. And I was kind of panicking about, I'm going to have a heart attack any second because all those numbers were in the red. Not super high. I didn't really look up the ranges, but it got me panicky. The doctor prescribed rosuvastatin 10 milligrams a day, and I didn't take it for a whole year because, again, I said, I'm just going to use diet to solve this. And that wasn't a strategy. That was procrastination. So eventually I tried to compromise. I had a friend that was taking 5 milligrams a day. They said, try that. I did. I didn't have 5 milligram pills. So I did 10 milligrams every other day, basically 5. And it worked. My LDL dropped a little bit. It went from the 150s to the 130s. It's better, but it's still red. It's not solved. So I committed to 10 milligrams a day, which my doctor also insisted that I do. And then it dropped to 119 and more improvement. It's just not where I wanted it to be, though. I'm still in the red, and I'm just doing it through medication. I was hoping that I could do it through diet, but I'd never really tried to do any of that. And really, even just the 5, 10 milligrams, that was just me also just kind of playing around in the shallow zone of the waters here. And years before, I remembered I had plantar fasciitis in one of my feet. And I got that from a jogging accident and twisting my ankle and stuff. And I had it for years. And in less than a week, I fixed it with some really simple inserts and house shoes and other things. And I was amazed that this thing that I thought was kind of semi-permanent could go away with such simple levers and simple changes. And so I thought maybe cholesterol is similar. Maybe I have more control over this than I'm initially assuming. And so I Googled around for options, found this book, Cholesterol Down. Each chapter was a different food. And I decided to, instead of just oats lowering my LDL by 7% or whatever the number was from the studies, I just did all the foods. I implemented it, and that's when everything changed. And I stopped trying to eat healthier, which was just kind of almost a form of procrastination. Like, I'm going to do this or do that. I got focused as like oats takes it down this much, beans this much, soy this much, so on and so forth. There are all these things that have been tested separately, garlic, so on and so forth. And I decided to just build meals that had these things in them and really try and power it down. So my meals had, not all of them, but like there was like a meal that had oats and flax and soy milk, and apples and berries in it. These are kind of out of order. And then I had another meal that was like beans, lentils, vegetables. And then I would also have like amla sprinkled and psyllium in like just water for hydration. And the psyllium also lowers your LDL cholesterol. And I also drastically cut down on the amount of saturated fat from all sources, like less ice cream, less junk food, less fast food. And my fiber was probably up around 30 grams a day, though I wasn't measuring it at this time. I was just focusing on eating these types of foods. And the result, my LDL dropped as low as it's ever been to this point of measuring it, 83. And then later, years later, after you see the little drift up here happening, after it had gotten to a point where I couldn't stand it anymore, I kind of repeated this, and my LDL hit 80. Same 10 milligram statin this whole time. That did not change. The only thing that changed was the foods that I was eating, the inputs, and the structure around it, which basically made it very repeatable and easy for me to do. So the pattern here was obvious. If I let drift happen, if I stopped paying attention and stopped doing my core meals, like when I went to Sicily, initially nothing really happened after Sicily. I got tested when I got back, and my cholesterol didn't really drastically go up. And that was in 2024. But when I got back, I started going to 7-Eleven and getting the buffalo chicken rollers. And I started going to Andy's more regularly to get their jackhammers. It's kind of like their version of the Dairy Queen Blizzard, but then they inject caramel or hot fudge into the center. I got Chinese takeout a whole bunch. I got ice cream from other places here and there and everywhere. And it slowly made my LDL climb. If you saw the chart, the full chart from before, you can see this going up, up, up till it hits a peak where I can't stand it anymore. But when I did this again, I reduced my meat, reduced the dairy, basically through eliminating junk food and fast food and takeout. And then I greatly increased my soluble fiber this second round. And this time I actually measured it. And then I kept my treats planned and small so they didn't drift my progress away. My LDL dropped again, 97, 98 down to 80. Why it works. Statins have different functions. Generally, they either reduce cholesterol production from the liver or they reduce your reabsorption of it. And there might be other things, but we don't need to go into all that. It doesn't matter. As you can see from my results, for me, particularly this body, statins did move the needle a little bit. Soluble fiber, really through the function of specific foods like oats and beans, really got it down to go a whole bunch more. And then both of those times, I pretty much cut out meat and dairy mostly, but not 100%, because I've never cut out junk food of any nature 100%. And that helped even more. So for me, medication kind of lowered the ceiling, as it were, and food lowered the floor, like to a level unimaginable. Why this matters to me in my 40s, because I'm in my 40s. I have a almost 2-year-old daughter. I want to see her get older, and I want to, walk her down the aisle when she gets married. This is important to me, and I don't have a ton of time. If I die at my average time, she won't be that old. So I want to push that average time as far out as I can with as many tweaks that I can do. And I know that if I try and be perfect and I try and cut out all ice cream and cut out all the good stuff and pizza and blah, 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 it will fail. So, I've got a kid. Travel is going to happen. We've got to at least see the parents or the grandparents. And that's I have never been able to successfully keep these high fiber things during travel. But as I saw in Sicily, it doesn't matter, because if you get right back to it, even after a week, even after 3 weeks, you can just get right into it without damaging things. It's when you use that as an excuse to drift out of control, which I did in my past, then it becomes a problem. But when I go back to my core meals that are high in fiber, I never have a problem with this. So I try and keep my 80% of my meals core cholesterol lowering meals, high fiber, and using those whole foods that are shown to lower fiber. And a lot of those are built around what we eat anyways. Oats for breakfast, bean soup for lunch. It's easy. And then 20% of the time, a little bit less, a little bit more, I eat the pizza. I eat the ice cream. I have a normal life. I go out to dinner and I don't worry about it quite so much. This is not me being vegan forever, because I just wouldn't be able to do that. But it is being about plant forward for most of the meals, because I find if I start eating more meat, for me at least, it's more junk food meat, like fried sesame chicken and so on and so forth, things like that. And that doesn't help anybody, especially not my cholesterol. I've got to have the fiber, and I've got to keep those treats controlled, small, little single serving ice creams, or I have to swap out a whole meal with an ice cream. And that's how I do that planning. And then I go back to my cholesterol lowering meals the very next one. So that's what works for me. That's what I've got numbers to prove and back up. For a long time, I avoided labs. That didn't help me. I delayed my medication. That didn't help me. I took half doses. That was weak. I even lost weight, and that didn't affect my LDL or my total very much at all, which was shocking to me. Even quitting drinking didn't really do anything about that. And I drifted because fast food is delicious, and it's a quick, easy pleasure. And, when you make more money later in life, it's easier to go out to eat more often with the whole family, and it's kind of fun. You don't have to give up all that. I don't give up all that, but I just have to put boundaries about it and have more repeatable meals that keep my cholesterol in check, So it's not for me about motivation. I get motivation when I first got the book, Cholesterol Down, but then after you read it and you start implementing things, you need something that's going to repeat, because that motivation energy will go away really quickly. And for me, it was repeatable, high fiber, cholesterol lowering food-based meals. That's what works for me. That's my proven lever. And I just do it over and over again. And when I do it, the cholesterol goes down. And when I ignore those meals, they creep back up. And then when I do it again, it goes back down. So I know the lever. I know how it works. It's really easy. You got to have meals that have lots of soluble fiber, low in saturated fat, and they're repeatable. They're tasty for you and you like them. At the moment, I'm still doing my medication, and this whole time, the medication never changed, except in the very beginning when I did that initial 5 milligrams, then 10. But the rest of this was all food related, all those ups and downs. So if you want to see some of the meals that I found worked for me and then tweak them to make them work for you by changing some of the elements of them, you can get them from this link here. Or if you're on your TV, you can scan this QR code. It's totally free. It's just 10 of the meals I most commonly eat. My gift to you. I hope it helps you. Do any of this stuff with your doctor. I'm not a doctor. I'm just an engineer who does experiments on me, and I'm sharing my results. And you don't need perfection. You just need a structure that survives real life and something that's tasty and you can repeat. And that's it. And I will see you in the next one.